15% or more on car insurance. So it's what you do.
I love it. How many of you like that commercial? Hey, cool. Jake, let's get the house lights too, man. That's a funny commercial. Do you agree? I think it's rather humorous because there's a running car they could jump in, but instead they run to hide behind the chainsaws, right? We know what the outcome will be, which is why it's funny. But fear motivates us to do some weird things. Would you agree? Fear makes us do some strange stuff. So I thought, well, you know what? There are a lot of fears in this world. How many of you have fears of something? If you're not raising your hand, you're a liar. Okay, you're all afraid of something. I won't make you stand up and admit it, but I will read you some, and if you find yourself falling into this category, you can hoot, holler, raise your hand, say, that's me, I don't know. Like, for example, if you are afraid of bugs and insects, okay, that would be called entomophobia. If you're afraid of bugs and insects, you have entomophobia. How many of you, I definitely have this. How many of you have the fear of vomiting? I hate that. It's the worst. Oh, it's awful. The fear of vomiting. Oh no, that's emotophobia. So, I have that. Let's see, the fear of balloons. How many of you are afraid of balloons? There's actually a fear of balloons. Fear of balloons is blowophobia. So for those of you that love cats, how many of you hate cats? How many of you are afraid of cats? Okay, this is not necessarily the hate of cats, but the fear of cats is allurophobia. Panophobia is the fear of everything. So I don't know, like, how do you live with yourself? The fear of fear. That's kind of weird. The fear of fear is phobophobia. Makes sense. All right, but the top 10 fears. You want to hear the top 10 fears? Yeah! Okay, top 10. We'll do a countdown, starting at number 10. Number 10, the fear of holes. Like a bowling ball. How many of you have trypophobia when you go to the bowling alley because you don't want to stick your fingers in those dirty holes? Or your feet in the dirty shoes. Okay. Aerophobia. How many of you are afraid to fly? Okay, that's number 9. Number 8. I kind of have this one a little bit. Mesophobia is the fear of germs. Oh. Anybody? Douse yourself in hand sanitizer all the time? Okay. You probably have heard of this one because it's a pretty popular one. Number 7, claustrophobia, the fear of small spaces. Oh, okay. Depends who you're on. The only time I've ever actually experienced claustrophobia is if you've ever been night diving, because the darkness is like right here, it's on you, and you can't get away, and that's kind of scary. That's kind of astrophobia, the fear of thunder and lightning, is number 6. How many of that is you? You're like, thunder, what's that? Lightning? We don't have that here. Like, once a year, you're like, whoa, what was that? You don't know what that is, you're afraid of. How many of you are afraid of dogs? Because that's the number 5 most common fear. And that is cynophobia. So if you're afraid of dogs, cynophobia, that's what you have. The fear of open or crowded spaces, that's number 4, and that's kind of the opposite of claustrophobia, and that is agoraphobia. Interesting. I know a lot of people that have this. How many of you like standing this high off the ground on the edge like this? It would just terrify you. No. The fear of heights is number 3. Acrophobia. Acrophobia.
Number 1 is going to be the dark.
Number 2. I kind of have this around here. Ophidiophobia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. That's the fear of snakes. And then number 1, you're correct. Spiders, we are more afraid of spiders than we are of, like, death, really. That's according to this. We would rather die than let the spider crawl across our sheets while we're sleeping. You know this thing? Or our face. How many of you that's ever happened to you? Okay, well, fear motivates us to do some crazy stuff. Fear motivates us kind of to do something. Listen. Fear will motivate us to do something, and sometimes fear will motivate us not to do something. Have you ever thought about that? Fear is a strange motivator, and it's probably, I would say, after kind of looking into it as I studied today, I would say fear is probably the number one thing that motivates us to do everything that we do. I'm more and more convinced of that the more that I've studied it. Fear motivates us to do a lot of what we do. How many of you are terrified to speak in public? Okay, so if you have to give a presentation in your class, does that make you nervous? Okay, it might motivate you not to do your best, right? So there's an example of fear motivating you maybe not to do something, maybe not to prepare the way that you should. Sometimes fear motivates us to do something, like when we're in a group of people, and I've actually done quite a bit of studying on this lately. When we're in a group of people, did you know that teenagers, more than any other group, are more inclined to make risky behavior choices because of what their peers are doing? Why do you think that might be? Because of what, Joshua?
They want to be like the group.
Good. So fear of judgment, right? Fear of others' opinions motivates teenagers to do a lot of what you do. So fear is this crazy thing that we deal with. Last week we kind of introduced our theme talking about passionate purpose. And I want you to really dive into me today because I want you to see and understand what Solomon's talking about. I want you to see and understand this concept of fear in a much different light today. And maybe even if you are afraid of spiders, after today you'll go home and say, no, not anymore. I'm not afraid of spiders. And maybe Lauren will kill a spider eventually. All right, maybe not.
Maybe Lena. She hasn't killed one yet.
That's all right. We all come from risk. Ecclesiastes 12:13. We kind of introduced it a little bit last week. We talked about Solomon a little bit. Ecclesiastes 12:13 we said was Solomon's conclusion after his experimentation with what fulfills him. And he said, this is the end of the matter. All has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments. We're supposed to fear God and keep his commandments according to Solomon. And that is the key to fulfillment and purpose in life. But let's think about this for just a second, because we didn't fully set the context. So the context in this book is very important if we're going to wrap our heads around this, okay? Now, I know that lunch is right around the corner. I know many of you just came from PE, so you're kind of sweaty and a little smelly, okay? Your clothes are probably sticking to you. I get it. And I know that you want to scoot back and rest your head on that seat and kind of get some Z's in. But let's not do that, okay? Because today, if you just focus and work hard to pay attention, I promise you're going to see this and you're going to see yourself through the lens of the Word of God in a little bit different light today that may actually transform you, okay? Not because of me, obviously, but because of the Word of God. So let's pray. We're going to jump in and start looking at this and digging deep to see what exactly God has to say to us today. God, we love you. Lord, I pray that as we open your word today, that you just draw us. God, don't let us be distracted. Don't let us be tired. Don't let our minds and eyes be drowsy. But God, let us just be energized to hear what it is that you, the God of all creation, has to say to each and every one of us today. God, that we would just tune in, that you would plug into what it is that you have for us to learn. Because, God, you have a message for us every time we open your book. And, God, I pray today would not be any exception. And, God, that you would just show us this simple concept in such a way that we just see it differently. God, and use us to make a difference. In Jesus' name, amen. So I know we've talked about Ecclesiastes before. I want to read some verses because I want you to understand how Solomon kind of came to his conclusion, but more than anything, the catalyst by which he came to his conclusion. All right, so I know you guys are between the ages of maybe, I don't know if we have any 7-years or 11 still. Maybe
I'm 11.
a couple. All right, Isaiah. And then we got some. How many of you turned 18 yet? Anybody turned 18 yet? Seriously? Okay, some of you. All right. It's perfect. Just in time to vote. Man, that works. That was my age, 18. So we've got a broad span here. Now, understand this. If the average life expectancy is about 80 years old, and most of you are not even 20 years old yet, you still have, what would that be, like 3/4 of your life left in front of you, right? So understand your perspective is somewhat limited and maybe biased towards the fact that you've got a lot of life before you. But I want you to understand what Solomon's saying. So Ecclesiastes chapter 1. If you have your Bibles, turn there. If not, there's one under the seat in front of you. Get it out. Turn to it because I want you to see it. I want you to read it. I want you to understand it with me. Because this is really important. And I promise, I can be depressing. How many of you agree with that? This really can be really depressing. Okay. All right. I'm going to try not to be entirely depressing. I'm going to pump you full of like adrenaline today. Okay. Especially if we wrap up. All right. But first, I want you to understand where Solomon was and the catalyst that led him to his experimentation that formed his conclusion that we looked at last week. The conclusion, of course, was the end of all, everything's been heard, fear God, keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man. That's what the Bible says. Okay, so Ecclesiastes chapter 1, the words of the preacher, the son of David, the king of Jerusalem. Solomon is referring to himself as the preacher. Okay, verse 2. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Meaningless. We could replace the word vanity with meaningless right there. Okay? So here's what he says right off the bat. Everything is meaningless. Nothing has meaning. It's kind of what he's saying. Now listen to how he expounds on that. He says, what does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? Everything you work for, we looked at this last year, everything you work for is only going to depreciate. We have a saying in our house, nothing breaks fixed. You ever thought about that? Nothing breaks fixed. If you think about it, everything moves towards decay. Nothing moves towards perfection. You tracking with me? Nothing gets better over time. You might even make the argument, investments appreciate. Not really. Not really. Material things do not. So that's kind of what he's saying. He says, you can't gain anything by the work. He says, a generation goes and a generation comes. He's talking about people right now. A generation goes and a generation comes. But the earth remains forever. So people are born, they live, they die, and they go away, and the earth continues. And another day comes. And the sun comes up tomorrow without the people that were here yesterday. And that's what he says in verse 6, or in verse 5. The sun rises, the sun goes down, and hastens to the place where it rises. It hurries to the back, to the place where it comes up, the east. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north, and around goes the wind. And on its circuits the wind returns, and it just continues. It's a never-ending cycle. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. The streams never stop filling the ocean because all of a sudden all the water ends in one place. It doesn't happen. There's a cycle that continues and continues and continues. In verse 8, all things are full of weariness. A man can't utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has already been in ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things. We could take out that word things and literally translate and put in the word people. Okay? So listen to it read that way. There is no remembrance of former people, nor will there be any remembrance of people yet to be among those who come after. Is that kind of depressing? You ever walk through a cemetery? You ever stop and think that person lived a life just like yours, something different? It's true. And so Solomon is sitting in his seat of wisdom and wealth, and he's looking around, and in spite of all of that, he says, vanity, vanity. This is all vanity. I'm going to die and nobody's going to think about me tomorrow. No, even though I have all this stuff. And he's thinking back about maybe he's thinking back about all the soldiers. We talk about David, who was a mighty man of war, right? But do we think about all of his soldiers that died in battle? And think about their faces? No, because we don't know them, right? So Solomon's looking around and he's saying, this is overwhelming to me. What is the purpose of all of this? And if we look at life through the lens of the world, that's our only logical conclusion. What is the purpose of all of this? It's vain, it's vanity, it's meaningless, it's pointless. There is no meaning. And unfortunately, that's the hope of an atheist. There's no hope, there's no meaning. If there's no meaning, then there can't be any purpose. Are you tracking with me? Fortunately, that's not the case. Fortunately, it's not the case at all. And it makes me think, and we've talked about this verse before, but I'm going to break it down a little bit more. We're going to look at it with this concept of fear in the forefront of our minds. Turn to the back of your Bible, James chapter 4. James chapter 4. And I want you to understand some really cool stuff today. And this is really cool stuff, I promise. The deflation that just took place, all the air that I just let out, I'm going to pump back full of adrenaline, not me. But God himself is going to pump you back full of adrenaline as we need to fill you with his hope and his purpose. Kind of like we looked at that young lady last week who opened a school when she was still a teenager on another continent. All right? So, James chapter 4, look at verse 12. James chapter 4, 12. There is only one lawgiver and one judge, he who is able to save and to destroy. Important verse, we're going to come back to that. But who are you to judge your neighbor? Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. For what is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Now listen to what he's saying here. He's saying, today you say, tomorrow I'm going to go into a town, I'm going to trade, I'm going to make a profit, and then I'm going to come back. And James says, time out. You don't know. You don't know what tomorrow brings. Who are you? You're just a vapor that's here in the morning and gone this morning. Now think about this for just a second. Wake everybody up around you. If you're falling asleep, wake up. Like I said, man, try to focus. I promise you're going to get something out of this, okay? Now listen, James is saying, you're just a vapor. Now, I think about that, like, what does that mean? You're a mist, you're a vapor. You know we have a fog layer that rolls in, right? You guys are blessed. We're all blessed to live by the ocean. And sometimes that fog layer will come in at night. Have you ever seen it come in the evening?
Yes.
I mean, have you ever been, like, driving, like, if you're on Palm and you're going that way, and you kind of start going down this hill by the trolley station, have you ever seen it, like, coming in like a wall? And you can almost see it just, like, swallowing buildings. Have you ever seen that? It's really cool. And as you keep driving that way, and then all of a sudden, it's like blue sky, and boom, you drive like 10 feet, and all of a sudden, you can't hardly see around you. It's the coolest thing in the world. And it'll usually stay until the sun burns it off the next day. Have you ever experienced that? Okay, that's not what this is talking about. That's like a mist, a vapor that lasts a long time. That's a long time based on what James is saying here. So I got to think, well, how can we think about this? And I thought, okay, here's a good thing. You ever see the guy walking down the side of the street with his, like, e-vape, you know what I'm saying? Have you seen them? And they, like, create this giant plume of smoke, like, around them, or vapor, you know? And then it, like, disappears like that. Okay, that's you. I'm not saying you're an e-cigarette. I'm saying you're that vapor. That's about the length of your life. We're just a blip. We're just a blip on the radar screen. I mean, I can say, yeah, today, when school's out, I'm going to go home, I'm going to eat something, relax a little bit, I'm going to come back and watch a volleyball game, I'm going to go home again, I'm going to chill, I'm going to get in bed, I'm going to come back tomorrow, half day tomorrow, right? A long weekend, awesome, big plans, going to work in the yard myself, I don't know what you got planned. Maybe. I'll put a picture on the screen real quick. You put that picture up. This is the guy, his name's Ben Roy. I don't know if any of you have heard. He's a graduate of our school in 1995. Mr. Johnson, is that correct? 94, 95? Okay. The gentleman in the middle, he's a dad now. He actually has another little boy. This past weekend was driving home from work, sitting at a stoplight, hit by a car and killed. He had weekend plans. He graduated from here. He sat in these seats for chapel. He had weekend plans. Probably going home, actually I know this, going home and hosting his son's birthday party. His son didn't have his dad's birthday party. So, I was doing some research, and I got to thinking, and I was reading some quotes, and here's the point, okay? Here's what James is really saying. And this is where we're going to start tying everything together. Here's what James is really saying. He's saying, number one, you don't know what tomorrow brings because you don't have knowledge about tomorrow. This is really important. Number one, you don't have the knowledge about what tomorrow holds. Okay, that's number one. Number two, get this, you don't have control over tomorrow. You don't have the knowledge about tomorrow, and you don't have control over tomorrow. I'm just like, bend it. So when we compare this to our fears, how does that relate? You can go back to the passionate purpose slide. How does that relate? Okay, let's think about spiders. That's the number one thing, right? We don't really have knowledge of spiders. What if that spider's deadly, right? What if it could bite me and I'm dead in 30 seconds? Right? So we don't have knowledge of the spider, nor do we have control of the spider, right? The spider goes down. We don't have control, right? We don't have knowledge and we don't have control. So what does that create in us? Fear, right? Are you tracking with me? Okay, this is really important. We're going to tie this all together and be like, oh man, yeah, I get it. We don't have knowledge and we don't have control. Now think about your specific fear. How does a lack of knowledge and a lack of control contribute to your sense of fear? Now when I'm using this term fear, what I'm talking about is kind of the emotional feeling you get when you're confronted with your fear. Right? It's kind of your heart starts racing maybe a little bit, right? You start breathing faster. Hide behind the chainsaws, right? Don't get in the car that's already running. Hide behind the chainsaws. We start feeling fear, right? And what if you had all the knowledge you needed? And what if you had control of the situation? Would you have that fear? Probably not, right? Would you agree with me? You agree with me? Okay, so think about it for a second. When we compare that to God, now think through this with me. When we compare that to God, I just typed out some attributes of God. Okay? Let me run through really quick. Listen to this. When we compare that to God, God is omniscient. You know what that means? It means He's all-knowing. God knows everything. There's nothing He doesn't know. God is omnipresent. There's nowhere God is not. He's everywhere all the time. God is eternal. He exists without a beginning. He doesn't have an end. He created time. He's not bound by it. He doesn't even need a watch. He started time and He will stop time. He exists outside of it. He's not bound by it. God's omnipotent. He's all-powerful. When God speaks, He can create matter from nothing. And I don't mean nothing like an empty jar. I mean nothing like absolutely nothing. God is immutable. He does not change. Now think about that for a second. God doesn't change. This means He is the most faithful and dependable. He's the most faithful and dependable source of hope you will ever encounter. He doesn't change. He offers you unrelenting security. God is self-existent. He exists in and of Himself. He doesn't owe His existence to anyone. You owe your existence to your parents. Your phone owes its existence to Apple or Android or whoever. God doesn't owe His existence to anybody. He's the top of the organizational chart. There is no above Him. God is completely righteous. He doesn't have any unrighteousness in Him at all. He is light, and in Him there is no darkness. God is entirely just. He is full of grace and truth. He is infinite in mercy. God is love. There's 6 more attributes right there. So Solomon's observation of this reality of life led him to this conclusion that the key is to fear God. Now, when we say fear in this context, let's understand the Bible talks about fear in two different ways. The first is that phobia type of way. Now, if we're kind of comparing this, listening to this, if we're going to compare this, I'm not saying theophobia. That's the name of the fear of God, theophobia. But not like a fear of God like you fear spiders, like a fear of God like a reverent awe of God. And I got to thinking, what's the best way to relate that? Like, what's the best way to kind of depict that to you? Because I'm a visual person, and I like pictures and I like images. That's why I use a lot of video clips and stuff, because I like to relate things to you visually so you can tie all of the little pieces together in your heads, okay? And so I started doing some research, and a guy that I love and I really look up to is a guy named John Piper. And he described the fear of God in terms of being in the middle of a terrible storm, but safe. And I thought, that's an interesting concept. And I got to think, how does that relate to me? Okay, wake up your neighbors, they're asleep. How does that relate to me? How many of you have ever experienced an earthquake? Okay, a few years ago, several years ago, we had the Easter earthquake. That was a big one. I was actually leaving Mr. Johnson's house when that happened. I was in Mr. Johnson's doorway when that happened. And I watched Mr. Johnson's chandelier swing back and forth, and that was kind of scary. That was a little scary. And I looked out and I saw the asphalt literally going like this. I was like, that doesn't, I can't do that. But I didn't grow up here, okay? So I grew up in the Midwest. Guess what we have in the Midwest? Tornadoes. Now, you can't really see an earthquake. You can see the effects of an earthquake, but you can't see an earthquake. But trust me, you can see a tornado. And you can see the effects of a tornado. It's devastating. And if you've ever watched, videos or storm chasers or whatever, tornadoes can be pretty scary. So I got to thinking, maybe the best way to understand this is to think about a tornado. Because they're awe-inspiring, but they're terrifying. And what we used to have to do is run to our basement. You're supposed to go to the lowest point. You're supposed to get in your bathtub or something like that. Put a mattress over your head, maybe 10 mattresses. Hopefully your house doesn't fall on you. And there was this thing as a kid that would always make me feel safe. And we would go to the basement. We'd get in a closet in the basement of our house. And my dad, it was kind of scary, but my dad would go upstairs out on our balcony. And typically the way our house was situated, the storms would always come from a particular direction. He would go out on our deck and he would watch. Now that has to be kind of scary, but as a young boy, I felt safe because my dad was watching out, like he could stop a tornado, right? Like that was going to happen. But I got to thinking, hey, I've seen this on TV. So I put a video together just to kind of depict this really quick.
Well, I've been storm chasing for the last 8 years and doing an IMAX film on tornadoes. So I created this TIV, tornado intercept vehicle, to get footage of tornadoes.
That's pretty scary, don't you think? Would you do that?
Heck no.
Yes.
That guy has faith in that vehicle,
Yeah,
right?
heck yeah.
You can Google it. I'm not broadcasting the video. I just pulled it offline so you can see it. 60 feet. I'm not doing that. But, I don't know. That would be scary to me. But that guy has faith in that vehicle that in the middle of that tornado, you saw that big flash of light off the windshield because something hit it that caused it to spark. Something in the middle of that storm hit that vehicle super hard. And there's footage on a show. I couldn't get it in time, but it shows the outside of the vehicle after that happened. But they built that thing to literally survive the direct impact of a tornado. So sitting in the middle of that vehicle, in the middle of the storm, being just inspired in awe of the magnificence and the terror and the sheer ferociousness of that tornado, but being safe. And that's kind of the fear of God, is knowing that we don't know. Knowing that we don't have the knowledge of tomorrow. We don't have the knowledge of what the future holds, and we don't have the control, but God does. But our propensity is this. Now let me wrap it up with this. This is a quote from, she's an author, writer, she's a counselor and therapist, but she says this. Fear is an emotion. That's kind of how we define it. But here's what she says. Fear actually stems from our desire to control the world around us. It's the fear of losing what's most important to us. Whether it's our job, our family, our reputation, our health, or our lives. Sometimes that means hiding from what we fear in hopes that it can't find us. How many of you have ever done that? Try to hide from your fears so they can't find you. Other times it means trying to control every detail of our lives, clinging tight to what most matters to us. Now think about this for just a second. The Bible talks about God has not given us a spirit of fear. In other words, we're not to fear the world around us. Don't fear your peers. Don't fear what they're going to think of you. Don't fear what could happen. Don't fear what might happen if you don't do something. Don't have that kind of horizontal fear. Instead, the kind of fear that we should have is trusting in God. When we come to the conscious understanding, I wrote this down because I don't want to mess it up. When we come to the conscious understanding that, in fact, we don't have knowledge of the next 10 minutes, we don't have control over virtually anything, and we recognize God for who He is and for His person, His nature, His character, and His attributes, we will yield ourselves to Him, allowing ourselves to fall into His faithfulness and His provision for our future. When this happens, get this. When this happens, Proverbs Proverbs chapter 14:26 says this: whoever fears the Lord has a secure fortress. I don't know about you, but man, when you're stressed about what to do in life, when you're stressed about what your friends think or what you should do or what you shouldn't do, when you're in a situation where you want to do something good but you're afraid because of how you might be received, or when you're in a situation where you know you're not doing what you're supposed to do but you do it anyway because you're afraid of what those around you are going to think or judge you, when you're in those situations, man, trust in God because He will be your fortress. That's what that verse says. And not only that, when you live that way, it says that that will become a legacy for your family, your children's children and their children, that God will be their fortress too. And so we can live life terrified of everything because we don't have knowledge or control, or we can surrender to God and say, God, we don't, but you do. And listen, when you do that, man, when you do that, you will live a passionate purpose because you're not going to be concerned over what can't be accomplished. All you're going to think about is, God, what can you do through me? And that right there, that's a shot of adrenaline for me. I don't know about you. But man, give up trying to control things on your own. Give up trying to do this thing on your own, because that's really what it is. It's a self-reliance. That's what fear ultimately is. I'll say that again. Fear, whether it's a spider's or your future, fear is ultimately self-reliance. When you surrender that self-reliance to God and say, God, I'm not going to be relying on myself anymore. God, I'm going to be relying on you. The sky is the limit. You will live your passionate purpose. And God will do amazing, unheard of, unimaginable things through you. You. Not the person sitting next to you, but through you. Let's pray. God, we come to you today. God, let us be humbled by your power. God, not only do you bring the sun up every morning and it chases back around as quickly as it can, as Solomon said, kind of in a depressing way. But God, when we watch that video of that tornado, God, you created the fierce and the ferocious that we experience in this earth, this earth that you created, like that tornado. God, but let us find refuge in you to have peace and security in your immutability and your omniscience and your omnipotence, so that we can have peace in the middle of the storm, like we saw in the video. God, that we would just turn over our self-reliance, turn over our fears that motivate us to do the right thing, the wrong things, or that motivate us not to do the right things, God. And I pray that we would just surrender those things to you so that we can be completely and utterly reliant on you, so that you can fill us and guide us to our passionate purpose, your purpose in and through us, God. Today I pray that if there's a student here that just resonates with this lesson that you have for us, God, they would just this morning take a few moments in prayer to connect with you and to lay their struggles at your feet, their fears at your feet, and surrender their lives to you so that, God, you can fill them and lead them, and they would just make a renewed commitment to follow after you. God, for those students this morning, I just pray that you would just anoint them and give them strength and power and conviction that they've made the right choice. God, we love you. I thank you for reaching down in your love and loving us. Even when we're yet sinners, God, we love you in Jesus' name.